Chapter 10 of The Worst Holiday. The car was gone because Eve and Peter were dogging, we discovered when they came back with love bites 69 minutes later. There was also a portrait of Eve on top of Peter, drawn in someone's cum all over the Range Rover. I thought the cum reeked till I realised Peter had failed to keep his promise of clearing the sick in the car that Simon, Ben and I had sat in on our way to the hostel to try to get the refund. The love at first sight that Peter experienced had not been reciprocated by Eve because, being a top, she always wanted to be in control. She loved that Peter had run for her and that he let her drive the stolen car. In fact, Eve was determined to get the whole gang the whole way to Ben Nevis. She felt bad that she had been part of a massive sidetrack that Peter started, so wanted to make it up to us, with no more dogging, less 'twas en route. En route, I should say. 'Twas a 9-hour drive from Hunstanton Hostel to Ben Nevis Inn, which we planned to steal spirits from before climbing the mountain. Before we could get going, I insisted that we made a collaborative playlist. Apart from Simon and Ben, we all got adding songs. 7 hours worth of songs in, Ben suddenly showed an interest and asserted we had completely Scottish tunes. Everyone else, apart from Simon, made the point that a lot of the drive was going to be in England. Simon requested that the journey's sound accompaniment should either be audiobooks, radio stations, our own talk, silence, or a combination. Like when I was Terry, I knew it would be a very disagreeable drive without music choices. Unlike Terry, who would put earphones in but get frustrated when his dad interrupted his music with irritating talking radio plays and news, I, as Tyler, spoke my mind. If you want me to travel with you, we're making a collaborative playlist, I re-insisted. We can listen to some radio stations to break the journey up, but we should prepare some bangers to ensure it won't be a pure mash trip. Terry wouldn't have wanted I'm Gonna Be 500 Miles by the Proclaimers on the playlist. He would have said 'twas ironic when we were being driven, and that climbing Ben Nevis is not quite 500 miles. But I, as Tyler, knew 'twas essential for our morale. It also made Ben Nevis himself partially happy. Peterborough picked some songs from Maxim and other Peterborough musicians. Eve prioritised Who's Got the Crack by the Mouldy Peaches. Even Simon got in the spirit when we said that if he chose a song, he could have 4 minutes of Radio 4. He chose Shoplifters of the World Unite by the Smiths. Having been refused the refund and abandoned for those 69 minutes by Peter and Eve, we slept in the hostel car park for 69 hours. Ben told us that he had been awake the whole time, smoking weed right next to our nostrils and snacking on our nose hair. Into the glove box, he nested a wad of cash. By staying in the hostel car park so long and snoring so loudly, we made the staff think we were protesting for our refund. Over the 69 hours, Ben told us that they kept handing him more money to get us to drive off. The adrenaline Eve pumped into us about the possibility they would try to get their money back when we were finally about to leave was magical. We no longer needed our first meal in over 3 days first. But after what felt like seconds since the hostel staff stopped chasing us, Eve realised that she had assumed to go right at every turning and never exit the motorway. Now the petrol was flashing on one bar. She managed not to get thrown off by the others snapping at Ben for not getting Apple Maps or anything programmed before 'twas too late. Futile snapping because he had long gone to sleep again, and one of us could have done it. Of course, we were too busy smoking marijuana and hissing out laughing gas at the sight of wobbly lorries, sticking our tongues out of the window as Eve overtook them. Now, we were the ones having a wobble. Eve was putting all her focus into pulling into the closest petrol station, and she ignored the beeping behind her for travelling 1 mile an hour less than the motorway speed limit to buy herself a moment of extra thinking time. The moment Eve pulled into Shell, she felt an uncomfortable vibe. We told her it would be fine, but we were wrong. Firstly, when we tried to put petrol in the Rover, and all of us, including Ben, who we managed to wake up by shouting, "Scram!" tried at every pump, nothing would come out. I, who was the last person to attempt the filling, resorted to asking the till attendant, who had been shaking her head at each of us, what was going on. All they said was they had run out of petrol. Secondly, we tried to get sandwiches, but the Subway staff would only give us salad, and not because we said we were vegan. Ben asked what we were going to do, but immediately went back to sleep before we could come up with anything. "I'm going to risk it and take us to the next closest petrol station," Eve announced. "Peter, program it, please." When we arrived at the next petrol station, none of us expected the same thing to happen again. Well, I'm not telepathic, but I certainly didn't. The first person who tried, who was Eve, couldn't pump any petrol out. Before she could hand it over to Peter, the kid at the kiosk came out. "I've locked the pump for a reason," he informed us. "What's that?" Peter asked. "I would not be wise to disclose that to you. Wait there, and I'll call someone who can bring you fuel." "Well, we can't wait to fuel ourselves." "You can't buy anything until your help comes." "No problem, we'll just take it then." "No, you won't. Just stay there, or we'll have to act against you. I'm going to make the call now." All of us, apart from Ben, were too weak to fight if need be. Of course, he had been fueling up on our nose hairs. We were going to wake him up to take some vegan sausage rolls from Greg's, but this thought about how he had been tiding himself over had us realise that we could copy him. After all, we couldn't risk getting in trouble at this petrol station and not being able to escape. So, Peter started the snacking by scranning Eve's armpit hair, while Simon and I went for Ben's beard and belly, respectively. Eve and Peter swapped, Eve enjoying Peter's pits. The smell of fresh air that both their armpit hair shared sure enhanced the taste. By the time our help arrived, the lorry wobble we laughed at earlier had come to our Range Rover. Eve and Peter were using their hairy energy to bang in it. This was energy they would regret using if we weren't able to get some fungus-filled soft pastry in our systems before getting away from this petrol station. Our help, who had travelled all the way to Cambridge, where we had accidentally ended up, was the manager of Hunstanton Hostel.